Good afternoon. My name is Bassam Haddad, and welcome to Live with ASI.
And I'm MK Smith. We have a packed show for everyone today with a brand new podcast, Lebanon's 100th birthday, must-read pieces, content on pedagogy, new texts out now, engaging interviews with Ziad Abu-Rish, Jillian Schwedler, Cat Haseman, Jessica Holland, Owain Lawson, Brittany Cook, Noura Erakat, Yousef Munayyer, as well as our usual catch-up segment with Carly Krakow, our media segment with Malihe, Razazan, and Adel Iskandar, and our grad student corner with Cat Haseman.
And without further ado, let's jump in. We're going to start with the 10 Years On project. On April 27th, we held the fourth signature panel in the 10 Years On project. As we've featured in the previous episodes, the 10 Years On project brings together 17 of our partners to produce resources for educators, researchers, students, and journalists to more critically understand the Arab uprisings and their various dimensions over the past decade.
This fourth panel, titled Disciplinary Woes and Possibilities, Political Science in the Context of the Uprisings, was organized by the University of Chicago's Center for Contemporary Theory and the Department of Political Science at the American University in Cairo. The panelists discussed the limitations of mainstream political science in grappling with the Arab uprisings and how to begin addressing those limitations.
We are pleased to have one of the stellar panelists here with us today, Jillian Schwedler, and we are going to actually be speaking with her in just a second. Jillian, we're going to bring you on. Hi, Jillian. Good morning. Good afternoon, actually.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are very excited to be with you and to have you with us today, and are looking forward to hearing from you about your experience in the panel and anything you'd like to say about the highlights.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. This is my first time on the show. The panel was great. It actually exceeded my expectations. We had people working on different parts of the region and different approaches in political science. And so one of the things that's really interesting, despite the different approaches, is the agreement that a lot of the science in the uprisings.
Jillian, we are hearing
intending to treat the uprisings as these standalone units and then compare them on which one succeeded and which one failed. So besides having a rich theoretical discussions about that, we had several of the panelists present original research that they had been working on and some really exciting directions, I think, for the other work that's going to be coming out. I can't hear you.
Before we conclude, can you tell us a little bit about your own research as it connects to the panel and what you're doing right now? Because I know you're always doing exciting work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm actually finishing a book manuscript that's going to be out next year from Stanford University Press called Protesting Jordan, Geographies of Power and Dissent. And there's one chapter on the uprisings, but it really reads differently than a lot of approaches because it's situated in a 150-year look at repertoires of resistance and dissent in Jordan. And it also pans out to look across the region. So we're not starting and ending my analysis with the Jordanian borders. And I'm also not just bracketing off the period of the uprisings. And when you do that, you actually get a really different understanding of what the protests meant. In Jordan, most people think they either wasn't a protest, there wasn't significant protests, or that the protests failed, largely because the people were calling for the reform of the regime instead of the fall of the regime. But actually, when you have a richer understanding of who was protesting and how their protests differed from earlier protests before the uprisings, it really gives you a very different understanding, and one that's helpful for understanding what's happening in Jordan up until today.
Thank you so much, Jillian. We are trying to actually conduct our show a little differently this episode because we don't want to go over time. Last episode, it went so long that a lot of people fell asleep on the 5th hour of the episode.
We needed a snack break.
It was basically a form of organized chaos. But otherwise, we would have loved to chat with you more. Thank you for coming on the show. And thank you for participating in the panel and for everything that you do. We hope to see you soon.
My pleasure, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, next, let's talk about some must-read pieces. In a piece titled UNRWA Once Again in International Spotlight by Francesca Albanese and Samar Muharreb, the authors convey their expectations regarding the upcoming UNRWA conference, and they urge the international hosts to use this as an opportunity to chart out a vision that goes beyond managing the refugee problem and towards a comprehensive vision which involves refugee voices.
In the revival of Moorish Empire and the Moroccan far right, Cristina Moreno Almeida looks at social media and meme culture to explore the present.
Meme culture.
Did I say meme?
You did.
I always say meme, actually.
Just want to make sure our audience understands.
I also
meme
have
culture
a spoon in my pocket, which I have no idea why I do. This is pretty bad. So basically, meme culture. Yes. So let me say this again. Cristina Moreno Almeida looks at social media and meme culture to explore the presence and messaging of the far right in Morocco. She calls for the rethinking the Moroccan political spectrum with a serious consideration of the role of digital fascism.
In a quick thoughts piece, our very own, and someone I'm very fortunate to call my friend, Cat Haseman, interviews Adel Iskandar about Al Jazeera's new right-leaning digital channel, diving into Al Jazeera's history as well as the American conservative news landscape.
And now we would like to move to another topic, which is a panel on 100 Years of Lebanon. This year marks Lebanon's 100th birthday. To mark this important anniversary, the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University organized a panel of scholars from a variety of disciplines and backgrounds to reflect Lebanon's history and present.
The panelists shared their particular expertise and addressed continuities and key shifts over the last century of Lebanon's existence as a state. Unfortunately, the recording of the amazing panel won't be published for a while. However, we do, in fact, have Ziad Abu-Rish, who moderated the discussion, here to share with us a little bit more. Hi, Ziad.
Bassam.
Hi, Ziad.
Sorry, we had you muted.
We had you muted. We only heard Bassam.
Oh, I said hi, MK and Bassam.
Oh, great to hear from you, Ziad. So I'll let MK moderate since she's on camera.
Oh, okay. So, Ziad, could you tell us a little bit about what this discussion involved, who was featured, so on and so forth?
Sure. The panel organized by the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies and myself as a research fellow there for the year brought together four amazing scholars of Lebanon, Hisham Safieddin, Carol Hakim, Maya Mikdashi, and Eric Verde. And the idea was to bring together four people who have really contributed to knowledge production on Lebanon from very different disciplines and topical foci, but to collectively reflect on how their insights help us make sense of the broader history of Lebanon. Panelists spoke for about 10 minutes each. We will be publishing the video, as you noted. We will also be publishing the text. And I think our listeners and viewers are going to find it a very fascinating panel.
Thank you so much. And could you tell us one or two of the key takeaways that you gathered from the discussion?
Sure. I mean, I think when you're talking about Lebanon, there's always the emphasis on sectarianism and the desire to exceptionalize Lebanon. And I think the two of the best takeaways that we got from the panel bringing these four scholars together is to understand how sectarianism works together with other dynamics of power and identity formation, as opposed to being the base of all other power relations and identity formations in Lebanon. And I think we also got a much better sense of in what ways is Lebanon exceptional and in what ways is Lebanon not exceptional. And in that sense, I think we also got a little bit of an understanding of Lebanon's place in the broader Middle East and North Africa.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ziad. And thank you for joining us here today. I know that our audience can't wait to check out this panel once it's up and ready for viewing.
And I have to say, given that we have an opportunity to share that, especially that Ziad hasn't come on the show very much. Ziad is one of the very, very, very small number of like super pillars of the Arab Studies Institute, Jadaliyya, and of course he is the co-editor-in-chief of the Arab Studies Journal. So he's extremely modest, but I want to say that the edifice of the Arab Studies Institute rests in good measure on Ziad's shoulder. So thank you, Ziad, for coming, and I hope we see you more often on this show, and we will see you soon. I apologize for rushing some of these interviews, but as you've seen from the previous interview with Professor Schwedler, or known better as Jillian, we are actually trying to be curt, or quick, or fast, or efficient.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
But thanks so much, Ziad.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Take care. As we know, producing and accessing knowledge is not an impartial process. In order to address these issues, the Knowledge Production Project, or KPP, was founded, which you can find on knowledgeproduction.com. KPP is a platform encompassing several interactive data visualizations and search tools that provide users with unprecedented access to sources of knowledge about the Middle East in the English language since 1979. Through KPP, users are able to search for specific topics, explore networks of think tanks and government bodies, seek websites and blogs, and identify research patterns. Let's bring in Jessica Holland now, who is the Knowledge Production and Pedagogy Manager at Pharma, and Pharma as in the Forum on Arab and Muslim Affairs. It's our research arm, which is not addressed very often within the rubric of ASI, largely because it is where it sits in the background, where everything happens that has to do with research, including the Knowledge Production Project, including Middle East Studies Pedagogy Initiative, the Political Economy Project, and the projects on various countries on topics which amount to more than 13 or 14. You can find them all on pharmanow.org. And for now, we are going to bring in the amazing new addition to the Arab Studies Institute, Jessica Holland, which is one of my favorite people because I am a huge supporter of the Holland football team, and this is how we selected Jessica. Actually, we looked at the last name and we're like, we have to have her.
out. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Kate. Hi, Bassam. How are you?
Great to have you.
Great to be here.
So, could you tell us a little bit about what's going on at the Knowledge Production Project? It's a large and impressive team, and we know that you're up to a lot of important work. So, if you could fill us in on what's going on, we'd appreciate it.
And welcome to ASI.
And welcome to ASI, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. Well, basically, we're going through a really exciting phase at the moment where we're taking all of the incredible existing work that's happened to make the amazing existing resource, and then we're upgrading it. So we're getting a more powerful search. We're redoing the data visualizations to make something truly visually stunning and easy to find the data that you're looking for. So hopefully the idea is, with the upgraded website, that whether you're a high school student or an undergraduate or a tenured professor, if you're able to find the information that you're looking for and perhaps even become inspired to look up another research question based on what you find.
Thank
some
you.
of the things that will be new. Oh, sorry.
No. I was just going to ask you if you could tell us a little bit more about what is new about the new design that is coming out.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So there'll be some new features such as congressional testimonies, which haven't been available on the site in the initial version. And basically those will allow users of the site to be able to trace which experts are giving testimonies to Congress, which think tanks they're associated with, and there'll be an updated version of the existing think tanks connections map so that people will be able to explore in a really dynamic and exciting way how those think tank experts are connected with each other, with various different think tanks, and with some government departments too.
Thank you so much. That's incredible, Jessica. That's going to be a really impressive tool, having that congressional element added in. I can't wait.
Absolutely, and we are looking forward to having the new design be available this summer. We are not sure exactly when, but with the support of the entire knowledge production team, with Jessica Holland and Renata Din running the show, we are really excited about this new tool that will for the first time in about 5 years since the actual launch of the Knowledge Production Project at Mesa, we will bring that amazing project way out of the garage. We've been talking about it for probably 13 years now, since 2008, for those of us who actually have been working on KPP. And we came out in 2016 with the new data visualization website, but now we are actually migrating to a much more efficient platform, and we're going to be much more visible, much more public, and much more engaged with educators at all levels. Thank you so much, Jessica. We are very appreciative of your time, and we look forward to all the amazing things you and Renata Din, as well as all the coordinators of the Knowledge Production Project, what you're going to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. See you soon.
Bye.
Come back. Take care.
All right, I am going to go ahead and jump if you want to fast forward that. Unless, are we ready for this next segment? I don't believe we are.
Which segment? With Noura?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, apparently we are going to wait because she's upstairs.
She has to come all the way down the stairs, which there's
downstairs.
quite a few stairs.
Yeah.
So give her a minute.
So, yeah, let's move to the next topic.
All right. Can you
All right. So what we're going to do now is scroll down
Thank you.
and get to the point where we talk about another topic.
Still gotta scroll more.
Scroll more.
There we go.
Okay.
Nope.
There you go. It's
Little
all
more.
you.
Little more. Okay. I
A
mean.
little more.
Okay. Next, we are going to go ahead and talk about the 1-year celebration of Jadaliyya's environment page.
This month, we celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the Jadaliyya environment page. The page's incredible co-editors have been busy this year cultivating a digital space for critically engaging environmental questions in the region. The page's impressive repertoire includes expertly researched articles, innovative roundtables, the Environment in Context podcast series, which is amazing, and live events, interviews, and much more.
We are thrilled to have two of the amazing co-editors of the environment page here to speak with us today. Owain Lawson and Brittany Cook. Welcome. We're going to have them join right now.
Absolutely. There we go. And here we are.
Perfect.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So we are making sure that you guys are not muted, except that, yeah, we need you. Okay, go ahead. So we are ready for you. We are ready to talk about the amazing things that the environment page has been doing. It's been a huge success overall, and it actually allowed Jadaliyya to reach a host of new audiences. So if you can please share with us a review or a summary of the past year and the beautiful things that you have been publishing recently.
Sure thing. So we were founded, as you say, a year ago in April. It was actually you, Bassam, who brought us together, the big team of co-editors that Brittany and I are here are representing. So we were founded really to try and broadly create a space for new kinds of thinking and writing about environment in the Middle East and North Africa in a way that puts environment really central to other kinds of processes and struggles. So thinking about questions of environmental justice and environmental racism, but also more broadly thinking about popular struggles, thinking about the contemporary struggles, and also thinking historically.
And it's also about thinking about the environment in kind of a broader way than traditional like conservation or things like that, thinking about the urban built environment, thinking about environmental justice movements, activism, and those sorts of things as well.
So in the last year, we've had a really exciting publication schedule that we've all been really happy with. I think all really satisfied with the work that we've been doing. One of the most prolific and exciting parts of the environment page is Homogupta's podcast, Environment in Context, which was also co-produced by Malihe Razazan, who was one of the initial editors of the environment page. That's published on Status, and there is now a list of all of the episodes available on the environment page on Jadaliyya.
Some other highlights that we've been able to do is organize roundtables. So shortly after the pandemic, the editors put together a roundtable on medical history and disease in the region. We've also put together one on technopolitics and engineering. And so, we're constantly looking for ways to bring these scholars together for engaged conversations.
And in September of last year, we had a chance to do a live event, our first of what we still intend to be many live events, which was called The World is Burning, Fire and Climate Crisis from the Mediterranean to the US West Coast, which brought together scholars from a variety of disciplines working on Palestine, Lebanon, North Africa, and California to have a conversation about the meaning of the wildfires that were raging then and continue to be popping up basically all over the place over the past couple of years. Upcoming on the environment page, I actually just coordinated a roundtable on the climate crisis, which brought together scholars of the humanities and interpretive social sciences to think about the tools that those disciplines have to bring to bear on the climate crisis as it pertains to Middle East and North Africa.
And we have a CFP out now for environmental perspectives on the Arab uprisings 10 years after. And we're, again, thinking about that broadly conceived about, different countries and different topics related to the uprisings, challenging dominant narratives. And we have exciting new environmental context podcasts planned in the future. So please stay tuned for those too.
Thank you both so much. Let me make sure that you are all covered here. There we go. Why are we not able to see everybody side by side? There we go. So thank you both so much for joining us. And I am very excited to say that we look forward to more. I know there's more coming in terms of knowledge production, in terms of articles, in terms of podcasts. So thank you. And to the entire team, thanks for bringing this magic to Jadaliyya and educating all of us on a topic that sometimes, and perhaps even more often than it should, gets short shrift. We hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Bassam.
Take care. And now I would like to share with you that we are very excited to have with us in the studio Noura Erakat, Noura Erakat. What is Erakat? Noura Erakat, to discuss with us the new podcast that she launched recently, Transnational Times. We are very excited to introduce Noura and to introduce the Transnational Times podcast hosted by our co-editor, Noura. This series will examine the various dimensions of transnational solidarity through engaging discussions with activists on the ground, scholars, public intellectuals, and journalists alike, committed to the study of and practice of transnationalism. For her first episode, Noura interviewed Daryl Lee regarding Lee's new book titled The Universal Enemy, relatively new book, titled Universal Enemy, Jihad, Empire, and the Challenge of Solidarity. They discussed the politics of transnational Islamist fighters, their universalist ideals, and reflections on solidarity under U.S. domination. So here she is, Noura, live in our studio. And if you can tell us, Noura,
Sure.
a bit more about the podcast.
First of all, I want to say it was such a trek to get here to be live in the studio, but I made it miraculously. And thank you so much for having me. We're excited to have launched this podcast called The Transnational Times, an emphasis that transnationalism is not a new concept, and yet in the ways that we're experiencing it today, much of it is either resurgent or a renewal or new forms of it, which defies a unipolar world that we live in, and a state-centric world that attempts to circumscribe our concerns with the political economy, environmentalism, racism, colonialism within nation-state borders, and instead emphasizes their interconnectedness and the ways that the domestic is connected with the global. And so for our first episode, we thought, what better way to kick off this program than to think about transnationalism through a very unique approach that is offered by Professor Daryl Lee in thinking about Islamist fighters who traveled to Bosnia to participate alongside the Bosnian army for their independence during the breakup of the former Yugoslavia, and also in the face of severe atrocities within Bosnia that disproportionately impacted the Muslim population, unlike the other territories in the former Yugoslavia that become independent. Bosnia has a very rich and diverse population, Serbians, Croatians, and Bosniaks. And so this is why it became a site of intense violence. And so, it's not your typical protagonist to think about the Muslim fighter or the mujahid. And yet this is the protagonist in the story who tells us a very different story about possibilities of universalism. He puts that universalism alongside other forms of historic and contemporary universalisms from the non-aligned movement, as well as thinking about peacekeeping and peacekeepers as a universalist approach who insists that they are the universalist figure despite their national backgrounds, with the legitimacy, claiming the legitimacy to use force, and as well as alongside the US's led global war on terror that we take for granted as universal, right? And one of the most provocative things that we emphasized was that the idea that we tend to think of the mujahid in Bosnia as foreign by default, and they become targeted as such in the global war on terror. And yet the largest concentration of foreign fighters are American soldiers in Iraq today. Yeah. So that was for our first episode.
Thank you, Noura. Can you tell us a little bit? I mean, thanks very much. And I know that there are many questions we would like to ask. We used to do that during the show, but then our show kept getting longer and longer. So we are going to be satisfied with this about the first episode, but we'll ask you about the second episode. So if you don't mind telling us something about the second episode, but if you also don't mind, if you could actually do it by looking at that camera, because we have this camera and I forgot to sort of ask you to look over there and tell us about the second episode.
Gladly. So
you see? Cool, huh?
The second episode, I will be joined by Professor Adam Getachew, political theorist at University of Chicago, who is the author of World Making After Empire, The Rise and Fall of Self-Determination. We will be touching on the question of Black internationalism and the challenge to imperialism today, certainly by discussing her remarkable book, but more generally thinking about this political moment, about thinking about ongoing Black Palestinian solidarity, but beyond Black solidarity, the distinctions between Black internationalisms and Pan-Africanism. Is there a distinction? The ongoing fight to remove U.S. military bases, for example, on the African continent, and so forth. But just to emphasize, the program is intended to think, obviously our first two guests are scholars, and scholar activists in many ways, but we also will have activists and journalists and public intellectuals. Something I want to emphasize in this moment of transnationalism is the ongoing fight to stop the evictions and the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in East Jerusalem, and particularly the removal of some 90 Palestinians from their home in Sheikh Jarrah right now.
So look out for a lot more from Transnational Times, especially that we live in an era where this topic is no longer a topic that's restricted to a cohort within academia. It's actually become a global topic, way beyond academia, way beyond critical views within academia. And we are very excited for Noura to be doing this. I was actually working with Noura and Dara Lee to produce the episode, and I actually ended up having to listen to it again because it was so full of fantastic insights. And you can watch the episode on Jadaliyya, and you can also watch it on statushour.com. Thank you, Noura, very much. We're going to take a little break. So now we have a challenge where you and Mary Kate have to switch. So I'm going to play this amazing interlude. Check it out.
Nailed it. I just want to say that was some impressive gymnastics that we just pulled off. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about how last month ASI sponsored an event put on by GMU's Middle East and Islamic Studies program titled Reevaluation or Retreat, in which Yousef Munayyer discussed how the Biden administration's policies towards Palestine and the Middle East at large, what they could look like after 4 years of Trump.
Yousef is joining us live today to provide an inside perspective on the event. And Yousef Munayyer is not just someone who we invited to speak and is actually also teaching at George Mason, where I teach, and has basically been a star according to many of our students who love taking his classes. Yousef has been active for, I've been watching him, listening to him for a couple of decades in various fields, not least on the question of Palestine. And we are very proud to have you with us, Yousef, and hopefully we will keep seeing you with us here at Live with ASI. So please tell us about the specific talk you gave, given that so many people are wondering what is going to happen now that we have a switch in leadership in the United States.
Well, thanks so much for that, both of you, and thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I hope I'm looking at the right camera. I really had a fun time giving this talk recently, where we sort of went through the prospects of a shift in U.S. policy under a Biden administration. We all witnessed the last 4 years under Donald Trump, which I think most objective people would say has been the most one-sidedly pro-Israel president in American history. And so, this shift from Trump to Biden on many different issues was seen as an opportunity for reevaluation in policy and perhaps a different approach from Washington in relation to Israel-Palestine. And so in this talk, I really kind of wanted to lay out the different things that might make that more likely or less likely. And to sort of sum it up, the Biden administration is facing a whole lot of challenges. We're all living through much of that with COVID, which has been the administration's sort of top priority. Beyond the domestic challenges, I think there are international issues which are taking precedence. And the other difficult reality for Palestinians is that in recent years, the Palestinian issue has dropped from the international agenda, has been superseded by several other issues, including in the Middle East itself. And so for all of these reasons, I think, where I sort of came out is that the Biden administration is likely to sound a little different than the Trump administration, as I think, most walking, talking creatures would, but is not going to make any drastic shifts in policy beyond sort of token reversals, and is not going to dedicate a whole lot of time towards engaging diplomatically on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. And I think that's an important reality to wrestle with for people who care about Israel-Palestine, who care about seeing progress and justice and freedom and equality for Palestinians, because it helps us think about what the opportunity structure is when it comes to change, where there are opportunities for engagement, where there are opportunities for change in this current moment.
Great. Thank you so much. That was very informative. I know that we all are kind of on our toes at this point in the administration, waiting to see what happens next.
Absolutely. And Yousef, we are also interested in doing a bit more on the question of Palestine here on the show. And I know Jadaliyya and various platforms at ASI are working on this topic. And I know you are working on something very interesting. But we will invite you another time to address it whenever you're ready. We'd love to have you. One thing, Yousef, I have no idea where you are looking. You were right. Are you looking at the right camera? Because you're looking above the camera.
I'm trying to look at this one right here.
Oh, I see.
It's
Okay,
right
so
in front of me.
Perfect.
but you're also looking elsewhere, which made me feel that, it's very interesting. But your background and your image is really good. So we would love to have you on the show again.
Happy to do it. Thank you guys so much.
Shukran, Yousef. Thank you for
Thank
taking the
you.
time and coming on.
See you later.
Salam. Take
Bye.
care.
All right. Now, as Bassam was talking about, how we want to have Yousef back on the show and so on and so forth, we should mention that this episode is actually the last of the season. So episode 9 is the... Thank you. I mean, yes, exciting, but more exciting is that we are going to continue the show. It's going to be looking a little bit different, but that is for the better. It's just... I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of great things in store for the show, so keep an eye out. We're not even taking a break, really. We're just ending the season and then doing another.
The season is ending, and as you might have seen in this particular episode, we are trying to make things a bit more efficient in terms of time. So we're going to be a little bit more rude in terms of cutting things off.
Love that.
And we have a new system of dealing with things which we are grappling with as we speak. But it will allow us to avoid certain glitches that used to happen in the past. But always the mute button is going to be an endemic glitch. So that's not going to change very much. So now we are actually going to move to another topic. Is this a bug?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
So, huh?
Oh
my God.
Anyways, okay, now we're going to move on. So on last month's show, we debuted... Oh, my God. We debuted...
This is like a freshener, so I don't know if it likes... Maybe it likes fresheners.
On last month's show, we debuted a brand new Connections podcast hosted by Jadaliyya co-editor Owain Lawson, which combines journalism, analysis, and scholarship to offer timely and informative discussions on current events and broader policy questions.
For the podcast's second episode, Owain Lawson spoke to Maha Samman and Mick Dumper regarding... Whoa, what did I do? When Mick Dumper...
All together.
All right. So, Owain Lawson spoke to Maha Samman and Mick Dumper regarding the politics of holy cities and discussed the interaction of conflict, religion, and political power.
I had the pleasure of speaking with Maha about the episode, and we are pleased to now share with you a part of that conversation.
Absolutely. And we are going to the episode right now.
Hello! Today I have the privilege of speaking with Maha Samman, assistant professor at Al-Quds University and a recent guest on one of ASI's new podcasts, Connections. The podcast episode titled The Politics of Holy Cities featured a conversation between Maha, Mick Dumper of Exeter University, and Jadaliyya's own Owain Lawson. Maha, welcome. It's wonderful to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much for hosting me. It's a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Of course. Now, the title of the episode was The Politics of Holy Cities. For those in the audience who are unfamiliar with the notion of holy cities, what can they look forward to learning about them in this episode?
Well, the episode, as you mentioned, is about the politics of holy cities. And mainly it was about the recently published book of Mick Dumper, which is titled Power, Piety, and People, the Politics of Holy Cities, as well as my own work on the politics of urban space, mainly from my book, Transcolonial Urban Space in Palestine, Politics and Development. And the focus was on Jerusalem, analyzed within a wider range of comparisons, whether it is from the perspective of holy cities, comparing it with other cities, or from a colonial perspective and colonial dynamics, focusing on space and time as part of the analytical approach within the colonial perspective. Now, the episode also covered other issues like definition of a city, the role of religion in conflicts, the significance of cities or holy cities within local, regional, or international scales, but overall, how these influence conflicts and how they affect the dynamics of power struggle. So the discussion began with Jerusalem and then expanded into other themes, comparisons, and culminated with the uniqueness of Jerusalem.
Wonderful. The episode included a discussion of the hyper-politicization of holy cities. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Mick explained his interpretation of holy cities, and he identified 4 characteristics by which he would consider a holy city as such. And these 4 characteristics included, obviously, the existence of a holy site, powerful religious clergy, financial revenues flows, and activities in the city where the holy sites are used as a platform for religious rituals.
And one of the topics that you discussed was the notion of faith as a resource. Tell us about that.
Well, the issue of urban resource came up within the discussion of the definition of the city, and particularly Spiro Kostov's work on cities and his own definition of a city, where he identified 9 characteristics. And the urban resource issue is one of these characteristics. So urban resource in different cities could differ. It's not necessarily the same in every single city, and the way it affects the identity of the city. So in Jerusalem, the existence of holy sites affects the identity of the city of Jerusalem. So this could be considered an important urban resource, because the significance of these holy sites is beyond the local to go into the regional and international scales. So it is intrinsic in the manifestation of religious faith for Muslims, Christians, and Jews. However, the problem in Jerusalem stems from the colonial dynamic, in which the Zionist colonial project uses religious interpretation to achieve power over the city and its people. So this takes several forms. This could be spatially and temporally, and including urban domination through elements of control like the segregation wall, the checkpoints, which affects the daily lives of the Palestinians, both Muslims and Christians. So, and here in the here is when the Palestinians' attachment to the city derived from their faith, and the right to the city generate resilience and resistance. So this takes many forms, such as practicing everyday life practices in the city, including worship, and this could be seen in these recent days in Bab al-Amud in Damascus Gate, where they are practicing their right to the city and their right to sit on the steps of Damascus Gate.
This past month, Khamisa, which is a feminist collective, put together an event that was co-sponsored by Jadaliyya, which featured the family members of political prisoners in Morocco, and they shared some of their experience with the struggle of the oppression of their family members. So here to tell us more about the event is Jadaliyya co-editor Samia Errazzouki.
Yeah, so this is the second event that we co-sponsored with Jadaliyya, and it was a huge success, mostly because a lot of coverage has focused on, the actual strife of the political prisoners in Morocco, and oftentimes there's little attention paid to what the family members have to contend with. So we had the mother of Omar Radi, a journalist. We had the wife of I should say her name, Fatiha Shribi. We had the wife of Suleiman Raisuni. Her name is Khulud Mukhtari. We also had the mothers of 2 activists from the Hirak movement in the Rif, the mother of Nasser Zafzafi, Zulekha Sihdou, and the mother of Nabil Ahmjiq, Aliya Boghroum. Both Nabil and Nasser have been sentenced to 20 years in prison, which they're currently serving. And both Omar and Suleiman have been in in jail last year, still undergoing trials, still have not faced any official conviction. So in the event, it was an opportunity to sort of bring these women together to sort of speak about their experiences. In many ways, it was enlightening for viewers to see sort of what happens behind the scenes, the difficulties that they have to deal with in terms of their family members being moved arbitrarily, not being able to hear from them, the frequent hunger strikes that take place and the toll that it takes on their health, and sort of the relentless surveillance that takes place during the phone calls and other issues and obstacles that they have to deal with. And
another part of it was, it was an opportunity for these women to come together and kind of share in their sadness and their resilience and their anger. And so it was very, very powerful. We had the event in Arabic, which allowed us to sort of expand and open up this discussion to a viewership and a base in Morocco. And it was moderated by one of my colleagues, Haddad herself, a journalist who was formerly imprisoned over allegations of having an abortion and extramarital sex. And she was subsequently pardoned, received a royal pardon that was unprecedented. So the fact that it was moderated by someone who experienced sort of the tragic aspects of incarceration in Morocco really made it a powerful discussion.
Thank you so much, Samia, for bringing this material to our audience, generally speaking, and specifically that there's always a dearth. No matter how much we try to produce knowledge that has to do with North Africa, there's always a dearth of dealing with North Africa, not just in the United States and Europe, but also in the Arab world, which is why it's really important that we have these discussions. And thanks to you for bringing this to us. You have been the principal driver of the Maghreb page on Jadaliyya from the very beginning, and now, of course, you joined by Muryam and Toma and Brahim and others. But we look forward to more content on the North African region. We actually have this Friday an event here live on Jadaliyya, as well as on the Middle East and Islamic Studies program's Facebook page at George Mason, on the Algerian Revolution and the Algerian uprising, the Hirak, and it's an update with very insightful comments and presentations from both Muryam Hale Davis and Thomas Serre. And we would love to invite you again, Samia, along with Ibrahim, to address what has been happening in Morocco since 2010 in terms of protests, from the February 22 movement or events to up to today. So thank you so much for coming in. We're trying to sort of not ask too many questions so that we can keep on time. But if you have a last word, please go ahead. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next topic. Let us know. شو رأيك?
Yeah, I just really wanted to acknowledge and say that I think one of the unique and most privileged aspects of working with ASI and Jadaliyya is that it treats the Maghreb region in North Africa as integral and part of the region and not severed. And I think the content that we produce in the space that we have is invaluable and incomparable to sort of other institutions that work on the region. So just a thank you, and more is to come for sure.
Shukran. Thank you, Samia. We'll see you soon. Qubulat.
Take care.
Salam. Salam.
Now let's go ahead and talk about pedagogy.
In anticipation of releasing the second Pedagogy JAD mag, MESPI has used, Middle East Studies Pedagogy Initiative has used Jadaliyya to give readers a sneak peek into the magazine with one of the featured interviews in In this interview titled Teaching the Mediterranean, Jacob Besson interviewed the awesome Julia Clancy-Smith on her teaching experiences and approaches. We will link the sneak peek in the digest, but be sure to read the entire article when the Pedagogy JAD mag is released this summer.
And if you're curious, the title of the interview is Teaching the Mediterranean.
Did I miss that?
I think I maybe for a second just tuned out, and I don't know if you did.
I did say that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just, you know what? Can we rewind? No, خلاص, go ahead.
Okay. Another iteration of our engaging book series was released this month. This installment features a selection of titles from New York University Press on the Arab uprisings. What?
I forgot that if I switch to this camera, you can't.
That's why I'm like, memorize the script, turn.
No, but that's why you are so awesome, because I switched the camera and you probably are thinking, what is he doing? And you looked over there, but you were so graceful. So I would like to say I'm so thankful that you're my co-host. So thankful.
Of course.
The three books included are, I feel like this is the Grammys or something. Are we doing this? Are we doing this?
No.
No, we're
Yeah,
not.
that's fine. That's fine.
The 3 books included are Women Rising, In and Beyond the Arab Spring, edited by Rita Stefan and Munira Sharad. The Reawakening of the Arab World, Challenge and Change in the Aftermath of the Arab Spring by Samir Amin. And Arab New York, Politics and Community in the Everyday Lives of Arab Americans by Emil Reagan Willis and Wills. And now I should probably say that we could have totally done this. Look at that.
And the Oscar goes to?
And the Oscar goes to MK, of course.
Thank you. I must say, I think that's well deserved. So thank you. Now it is time for our monthly new media analysis segment, Pressing Matter, with Adel Iskandar and Malihe Razazan. We'll show you a brief clip here from their most recent conversation on World Press Freedom Day.
And we should remind everybody that Adel and Malihe have been running the media dimension at the Arab Studies Institute for many, many, many years. We are extremely grateful to have 2 people that are in the forefront of knowledge production on the question of media in terms of what it reports and how it reports, as well as the self-critique of the media. So we are very excited to be featuring the segment. And just to let people know as we move forward, given that we have a lot of stellar segments by different people doing different sorts of things, from podcasts to catch-up segments like Carly Krakow and others, we might be migrating some of these segments to their own podcasts, whereby we will just be featuring them here as snippets,
a teaser.
short snippets. So here's Adel Iskandar and Malihe Razazan. And here's Adel Iskandar and Malihe Razazan.
I'll take a turn now. And here is Adel Iskandar and Malihe Razazan.
And here's Adel Iskandar and Malihe Razazan. I think, yes, it's your computer that's doing this. It's not us. We are on point. And here's Adel Iskandar and Malihe Razazan. And here's...
Oh my God.
Okay, it is oh my God. This is one of the oh my God moments. يا عذرا ما بعرف شو عم بيصير. I have no idea what is going on, but I will promise you that this time it might work.
Welcome, everyone. I am Malihe Razazan, and
I'm Adel Iskandar.
Hi, Adel.
Hi,
and
Malihe.
This is another edition of Pressing Matter, a monthly conversation about some of the most urgent issues facing journalism today, and specifically our region, Middle East and North Africa. And Adel, we decided to spend the time this month focusing on Reporters Sans Frontiers Global Index of Press Freedom report. Reporters Without Borders looked at the freedom of the press in 180 countries last month in April. And Monday, May 3rd, also marked World Press Freedom Day. And the theme for this year was information as a public good. Something that I noticed and we discussed, and we wanted to share this with our viewers and listeners, is that I was following the news and the coverage of the index and the World Press Freedom Day, especially at a time when, because of the pandemic, information as public good has become even more crucial for all of us. And I noticed that the report came and went. It was published, of course, and it got some attention. And then the World Press Day came and went with some tweets and some Facebook posts and a few articles, but there was very little scrutiny about the report themselves and where we are and the impact of COVID on further deterioration of the freedom of the press in the world, and especially in the Middle East and North Africa. And as we look at this map that they put out, next to China, several countries in the Middle East and North Africa are Black. And they actually, in the index, the region ranked the lowest in the world. What are your thoughts about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, well, I think thanks, Malihe, for raising this issue. And of course, I think it's important to note at the outset that commemorating and thinking about World Press Freedom Day is a critical thing because, as we know, the state of journalism in the world today is quite egregious across the board, irrespective of how this ranking system operates. It should come as no surprise, I think, to most of our listeners, and unfortunately, those who are more intimately familiar with the Middle East and North Africa, that the records of the states in the region vis-a-vis freedom of the press or journalistic latitude and the ability to accept self-scrutiny is quite preposterous. With very few exceptions, the region is a who's who of media despotism.
Yeah.
So it's really quite a shame. And so unfortunately, the Reporters Sans Frontières report is very much in line with what we've come to accept and expect of performance, state and government performance in relation to the press in the region at large. Having said that, it's also important to note that this past year has had a much more damaging effect on the life of journalists and reporters and institutions that try to push the boundaries in the region, whether it's in the interest of affirming the public health authorities, all of which are, of course, in the hands of usually a single party power or an emirate or some fiefdom, which is the system of governance in at least a third of the countries in the region. So for all intents and purposes, it was an opportune moment under COVID for the media to be even more firmly consolidated by the institutions of the state.
We are now moving to another segment, which MK will introduce.
It is time for our monthly current affairs segment with the extraordinary Carly Krakow. Welcome, Carly.
So yeah, I'm going to jump right in, but always so much to cover and have an update about this segment at the end that we'll address, but I've selected just a few key topics and we'll get right to it. I want to start with an update that relates to what I would say is one of the most pressing public health and environmental justice issues in the US today. As many will know already, Joe Biden has proposed a major infrastructure overhaul in the US, and one aspect of this plan is a proposal to remove and upgrade all lead pipes. So many of our viewers will be extremely familiar with the dangers of lead in drinking water because of the now infamous situation in Flint, Michigan, dating back to 2014, when state-appointed emergency managers decided to change the city's water source to save money during a financial crisis. This led to an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease, extremely dangerous levels of lead as well. And there is no safe level of lead for children or adults, and this can lead to irreversible neurological damage, among other issues. Flint is one of many places in the country. There have been incidents in Washington, D.C. and Newark, New Jersey, and lead pipes continue to dominate water infrastructure from Chicago to Pittsburgh and elsewhere. So a situation to follow closely, especially as former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder and others were criminally charged earlier this year for their role in Flint. And I think there needs to be continued pressure, and there will be pressure, on the Biden administration and on the Environmental Protection Agency to make sure this plan goes far enough. So hopefully one step towards addressing a major source of environmental racism in the US, and lead poisoning is really a long brewing crisis worldwide beyond the US as well. So hopefully a much needed step in the right direction here, and the first of more changes ahead. Next, everyone will, of course, have heard by now that Derek Chauvin was convicted in April for the murder of George Floyd. So this is by no means breaking news anymore. There has been major coverage of this in recent weeks, but since this is our month at a glance type program, I wanted to address it along with a new update just this week, which is that, not entirely surprisingly, Derek Chauvin has appealed the guilty verdict. His attorneys are alleging jury misconduct and claiming that pretrial publicity affected the trial appeal, among other things, such as a question about whether a juror had previously attended a protest against police brutality. So this segment alone certainly cannot fully address the appeal. I'm not attempting that here today. But I think one thing worth mentioning that stands out is this issue of publicity influence on the trial. Because right in the midst of the trial, just miles away in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, a police officer shot and killed Dante Wright, a 20-year-old Black man who had been pulled over for a traffic violation. Also in April, a video was widely circulated that showed footage from back in December in which Karen Nazario, a U.S. Army second lieutenant, was pulled over by police, allegedly in a traffic stop, and subsequently harassed, assaulted, and pepper sprayed by police officers. This was in Virginia. So I can't possibly do this video justice just by recounting it. I'm sure many have seen it, but it is shocking. I haven't even mentioned yet the fatal police shooting of Adam Toledo at 13 years old in Chicago, and there are so many other killings that I haven't mentioned here. These are all just roughly in the past month, the ones that I've addressed so far. So again, this isn't a full analysis of the appeal by any means, but it raises the question of how can we expect to have jurors isolated from any publicity influence when the media coverage is not about George Floyd alone, because police killings of Black people and police violence more broadly in this country are so constant and so systemic that numerous incidents separate from the Derek Chauvin trial occurred while this very trial was going on. The issue is unavoidable in the United States. And there's so much that has been said far beyond what I've just briefly recapped. There was tremendous relief upon this guilty verdict, and all will be held up as the exception to the norm rather than triggering a deep and desperately needed overhaul of policing in this country. So a critical situation to continue to come back to. Last news update, I want to address the situation in India, where there is a crisis as the country surpasses 20 million reported COVID cases, but the number is believed to actually be much higher. And I think the best thing I can do with the brief time I have is to quote the words of writer Arundhati Roy, who in a new long piece in The Guardian writes, "Oxygen is the new currency on India's morbid new stock exchange. Healthcare is a fundamental right. The private sector will not cater to starving, sick, dying people who don't have money. The massive privatization of India's healthcare is a crime. The system hasn't collapsed. The government has failed. Perhaps failed is an inaccurate word, because what we are witnessing is not criminal negligence, but an outright crime against humanity. Virologists predict that the number of cases in India will grow exponentially to more than 500,000 a day." So again, that was Arundhati Roy, and I think her words here get to the very core of the situation. She is addressing the governmental failures and what she explains is a crime against humanity in India, and I think that her incisive analysis about the failure of the privatized healthcare system is profound and also something that resonates around the world and right here in the US too, where we saw during the height of the pandemic here what lack of access to healthcare means during an emergency and the devastation that failure to recognize healthcare as a human right will lead to. So extremely dire times in India for everyone still up against the brutality of the COVID-19 pandemic, and many more details available in her article as mentioned. So those are my news updates this month, but I want to conclude for today with some exciting news about the future of this segment. And Bassam has already been teasing this the past few episodes and today as well, but I'm glad to announce that my segment here, The Catch Up, is going to be launched in a new form as its very own video podcast. We're always saying how the current affairs topics covered here, each one could really be a full-length program in its own right. Rapid fire moving through these. So I have so many of my own questions about the topics I cover, and it's really going to be wonderful to go deeper into the analysis and to have conversations with some brilliant guests who can offer their insights on these critical issues in the US, the Middle East, and beyond. So I'm putting a lot of work right now into the production stages of this, and in the meantime, I will continue to share updates here on Live with ASI. And then in the future, as Bassam has mentioned, my updates will build on the information presented in these new podcast episodes. So I'm really grateful to share my analysis on this platform, and it's been a pleasure to conduct some incredible interviews. So excited to continue to be a part of this fantastic team and looking forward to contributing in this new way as well. And just want to say thank you to you, Bassam, especially, and our entire LWA team. Can't wait for what is ahead. So everyone, please just stay tuned for more in the coming period, and we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you, Carly, for everything that you
Thank
do
you.
and for making us look like we're professional because, we kind
We
of.
don't. So
Thank you very much, Carly.
It's a balance of all the.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
it's
all
like
the
the
moving
universe.
parts.
yeah.
So we hope to
Yes,
see you
yeah,
soon in
everything is
a new and refurbished segment where we'll still host you. But there's so much interest in what you have been addressing episode after episode that we feel it does require like sort of its own segment. But you will still be coming in, I hope, to talk about it and address it in short form so people can go off and do it. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
We will.
Carly.
Thanks, Carly. We will now
Thank
move.
you.
I was told Muhammad is telling me that we are loud. Every time
Shocker.
yeah, it is a shocker. Every time we actually do the so let me switch this back. Every time we actually do the sound check, I tell MK to sort of speak as though she's online live, and she does, and I do. But apparently, when we go live, we give it
Something changes.
we give it that extra kick. I don't know
Let's check out the new text out now while we figure out what we're doing.
exactly.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed that preview of the new text out now this month. Now I am pleased to say that I do not have to guess what my dear friend Cat had to say because we do in fact have her video. It wouldn't be live with ASI if we didn't have a couple of little technical
Yeah.
glitches, but it builds character, I think. So we're going to go ahead and show the grad student corner. Not yet, in a minute. We're going to show the grad student corner in just a minute.
Sometimes things happen whereby Google says, it says things such as download anyway, and we're like, what do you mean download anyway? So this is where we are at. Here's the segment from Cat Haseman. I have to say that we are sorry for this snafu, but here it is.
Thank you, Bassam and MK, and welcome everyone to the Graduate Student Corner. Normally, I wouldn't wear a t-shirt to this thing, but it's finals week, so I hardly have any time. I know that there are probably a couple of papers standing between you and the summer, or even between you and graduation, so I'm going to keep this thing short and sweet and hopefully helpful. My goal today is to show you how you can use ASI's many digital platforms to collate research for your final papers, and I have two specific pointers. Let's start with Jadaliyya. Most of us grad students are internet savvy enough to know to just head straight over to the search bar to save time. The trick with the Jadaliyya search engine is to keep your keywords short and simple. Don't get discouraged if your first search attempt flops. Instead, just simplify your phrasing and try again. There are 50 different articles here that address the topic of race in some capacity, and chances are at least one of them will help you develop a more critical and analytical lens through which to view your research topic. Next stop is MESB. The great thing about MESB is that they do a lot of the work for us. As long as you've already narrowed down your final paper topic, you can most likely find a bouquet of articles or a resource list related to that topic. At the master's level, we tend to rely on peer-reviewed resources. So a great place to start on the MESB page is up here, where it says peer-reviewed. You can either search chronologically or by topic. Here you'll find curated lists of the most recent or pertinent articles related to a given topic. And as a last resort, you can always keyword search here on MESB as well. There you go, 2 simple steps for maximizing ASI's resources this final season. That's all for me. Now back to writing papers. Good luck, everyone.
All right.
Back to writing papers indeed. That's the name of the game right now. Paper
And if
writing.
you notice the white background, it's actually not so much of a background. It's an attempt at trying. Yeah, you don't have to. It's an attempt to actually vary things, because we're going to try this for the next episode, where we will actually be showing things, including clips from different audiovisual productions. So I'll let MK take it from here.
All right, so we are going to wrap up today's episode with a couple of new texts out now. As always, we will discuss a couple, even though you have already seen a highlight reel of those that have been released.
Madawi Rashid wrote a book called The Sun King, Reform and Repression in Saudi Arabia, critically assesses why Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been considered a reformer, aligned with al-Rashid's efforts to document the diversity of Saudi society, and its aspirations. The book incorporates voices of many Saudi activists abroad and the emerging Saudi diaspora.
In another Newton interview this month, Asif Bayet and Linda Herrera offer insight into the collaborative book titled Global Middle East into the 21st Century, which explores the globality. Oh, I didn't know that was a word.
Globality?
Global.
Muhammad, is this a word?
Globality?
Globality.
I like it. Globality of the MENA region, using a multi-layered approach, including social, cultural, intellectual, and religious globalities from leading experts in these fields. So thank you everyone for tuning in. It has been a pleasure being your co-host today. As always, keep an eye out for this episode's digest, where you'll find all of the material that we have discussed here today.
And I am very happy to share that this marks the end of our first season of LWA. Happy in the sense that we made it, as we've now covered content spanning the past year over these 9 episodes, and I still cannot get this thing right. I mean, I don't.
Maybe next season, folks.
No, it's not about the season. I think it's just about my head.
Your words, not mine.
Yeah. As we've now covered this content over the past 9 episodes, we're excited to see you all here next month in early June for the premiere of our 2nd season.
Live from Washington, D.C., I'm MK Smith.
And I'm Bassam Haddad. See you all soon.